When the syndication started, I told the staff, I said, one of these days somebody's going to send us a letter, and we're going to play it, and it's going to be the most important thing we do in the show. It'll be the feature.
Kasem is the king of America's countdowns. The Lebanese-born Casey made a name for himself as an actor and activist, but his success as a DJ was his claim to fame. His familiar voice and gentle style of telling stories made him a favorite amongst pop fans across the country.
And now, before we hear the #1 bestseller in the land, let me tell you an interesting story. Several weeks ago on the LP chart, the Beatles hit the top spot with Beatles 1966 through 1970. Then, 2 weeks later, Paul McCartney and Wings knocked the Beatles off the top spot with Red Rose Speedway. And now this week, Paul McCartney bows to another former Beatle, George Harrison, who this week takes over the #1 spot in the LP charts. And George reached #1 in only 2 short weeks with his LP, Living in the Material World.
From the sandy beaches of Hawaii to the skyscrapers of New York City, if you had a pair of ears and a radio on, Casey Kasem would find you. After all, this was Casey Country.
You're listening to a countdown of the most popular songs in America. My name's Casey Kasem, and the countdown rolls on.
And after all those stories he told on air about other personalities, it figures that Casey would have one of his own.
The countdown began on the 4th of July, 1970. It was an idea that my partner Don Bastani and I came up with. Our first show took more than 18 hours to record. And at first, we only had 7 stations. But Don and I believed, and so did a growing number of listeners. Back then, there were no long-distance dedications on the show. That didn't come along until 1978, when Matt Wilson located one in the mail. And Matt's been with us ever since. To date, we've read more than 3,000 of your dedications. Over the years, musical trends have come and gone, from disco to new wave, from punk to hip-hop, from bubblegum to rock. We've been there, counting them down.
His unique voice and one-of-a-kind countdown is what made Casey, but his requests and dedications were what put him on the national map.
It didn't happen overnight. It was 8 years into the show before we got that letter. And the letter came from a boy named James, who was 17 years old and had fallen in love with Desiree. And Neil Diamond had a song out called Desiree.
Right.
And that's why he wrote us a letter, and he said, if you play Neil Diamond's Desiree on American Top 40, maybe Desiree, who was in Germany with her father, who's in the service, will hear it and know it's for her. And that 3,700 readings later, we're still doing it.
Early in his career, Casey found himself in a studio and landed several gigs doing voiceover work for several well-known cartoon series.
Well, the first voiceover I got when I came to town was the part of Robin on Batman and Robin back in the 60s. We did 75 shows. And that was the beginning of doing a lot of Super Friends. I was Robin on Super Friends for about 15 years. Battle of the Planets, Transformers, Josie and the Pussycats, then of course Scooby-Doo. Scoob, oh buddy, old friend, old pal, we've made the big time.
Casey Kasem has a heart of gold when it comes to charity and has never been shy when it comes to voicing his concerns on the most controversial topics.
October 7th, all America should be marching on Washington. October 7th, we should be telling our government, we should be telling our Congress to replace the $25 billion they took out in 1981 for low-income housing. There are 3 million homeless on the streets today, 20 million by the turn of the century. We can't let that happen in the richest country of the world. Please be there October 7th, march on Washington, and take our government back and put it in our hands so that we can tell them enough bombs already. What we need now is security at home.
Our nation's lakes and rivers are polluted. Our coastal areas and precious farmlands are contaminated by toxic chemicals. Our air is often unfit to breathe. Yet, there is never enough money to clean up our environment, but there is always enough money for war.
In 1995, Casey Kasem received the National Broadcasters Hall of Fame Award, along with some of the greatest names in radio and TV.
Well, it's a distinguished group of people that I'm being inducted with.
Les Brown and Rosemary Clooney and Molly Hall and Jack Whitaker and, of course, Jonathan Winters. I mean, it's just a wonderful group of people, all extremely talented, all with wonderful, exemplary careers, and makes me feel very proud.
One man who has stood with my family and me in all of the dark places of our society and around the world, shedding light, standing for unpopular but righteous causes. History has a way of vindicating people from hysteria if they have principles. I do not know a public figure today who has risked more for right than has Kasem.
Keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.